Well, hi. Thanks for coming and joining me in my shop here. I'm just starting on another project, just an AM radio from a very nice console. But it's been one heck of a struggle to get this onto my bench tonight. What I thought would take probably 10 minutes to get it out of the console took, well, I don't know how long. A long time. So I've taken a series of photographs. I often do just before starting a project. I photograph everything as is. Photograph where all the wires go, how everything's connected, so that when it comes time to put it back together, I have photos to help me do that. So I can use those photos to create a bit of a slideshow, and I'll do a little voiceover and just tell you the story, because in the end it's pretty interesting getting this out of that cabinet without hurting it or me. Okay, so I've taken about maybe 20 photographs while I was getting the radio out of this cabinet. It's very nice looking. It's in really, really good shape. That's the radio when you pull it out by the drawer there. If you look at the top on the left side, that's a hinged top that you can lift up, and in there is a record player. That other drawer handle doesn't pull anything out. I didn't pull on it hard enough, maybe. That's just looking right down on it. It's in very good shape. One shortwave band and the AM broadcast band. RCA Victor. That was my finger in the middle there. This is just looking at the back, just like a long shot. When I was taking these pictures, I didn't intend to include them in a video. These are pictures I take to know where all the wires are supposed to go when the time comes. You can see on the left there an antenna, magnetic loop antenna. It's just a shot of some of the information on the back, which I like to get pictures of. Look at that lower sticker. This is to certify that this instrument includes the matched elements required in the production of golden throat tone. Signed by the Chief Engineer, Home Entertainment Division of RCA Victor. Put his name on there. Golden throat. It's a close-up of the antenna. You can see on the left it's on hinges with springs, and it can swing about 90 degrees. It can swing into the cabinet or out where it is now. That's a closer look at the speaker. In focus is a plug that plugs the speaker leads in. And the part that's out of focus is the power that runs to the record player. If you notice down the lower left, you see some, I don't know what to call them, house wiring connectors, twist-on connectors there. Yeah, that's just a shot of the sticker. I like to get things like this on camera, and in fact there's the tube layout. 2 6K6s. Okay, that's just a closer look at the speaker. Now we're looking up at the radio, and I'm wondering how to get it out of there. Getting a picture of where all the wires run and that, and you might notice something about the power transformer. Just another shot of the antenna wires. Notice there's only one under a screw. The other 2 screws have a link across them. These are all worthwhile observations. 2 wires coming out of a hole, and one on the left there with knots in it. Oh, it looks like it broke off the end. I didn't notice that before. So it too must have been coming through a hole, and it got tugged. Where's that black wire going? This is just looking up at the record player. At this point there's no intention to try to restore this record player, but we might get interested towards the end of just checking it out a little bit. It's only a 78 speed record player, and probably the cartridge is shot. Well, there's a look at it. It's pretty cool looking. Might be interesting if the mechanics could be made to work. And if you look up in this area here, and you notice the funny curve on this, so when you put your records on here, they'll hang on this edge. And I think this is on a bit of an angle too. It doesn't look like it in the photo. They won't all fall off. But over here is a record pusher. Now the outside edge of the record comes right along here. Sits on top of this tang. There's another one over here.
It has this piece behind it, and then this is just to, well, I guess this is what forces the records onto an angle so they won't fall off until their turn comes. There's a closer look. I've just flipped that lever over, and this, you can call this part the pusher. When the time comes, see, it's about the thickness of a record. Thinner. It's probably thinner than a record. It will push the lowest record off. It will push it off of here, and down it'll go. And the next record will just drop onto this edge here. See, back, 78 records only have one song on a side, so you got to play a stack of them. Inside the cabinet, the record player cabinet, there's a built-in light, which is a very handy thing. And from above, all you see is just this cover. It's very hard to see, in fact. But underneath is this light, and it's run with 6.3 volts, a standard miniature light. I can get it out of there. Or do I have to? These are the hinges on the record player. As much as we're not going to focus on it, I thought this was quite interesting how these were made. So this piece is sitting where it's sitting. And you see it's on an angle. It's like a ramp. This piece is heavily spring-loaded, and it wants to close. So this part of it, this is probably a roller here, is pushing on this ramp. So as you close the lid, this descends down the ramp, and the spring is made more and more tense, which pushes back on the door opening. Interesting, I've never seen anything quite like that. And we're looking up and just getting more pictures of where these wires are, because I know it's so easy. It all looks great. All looks great till you go to put it together. All of a sudden you have questions. This wire here is the wire that goes up to the light bulb up above, the light bulb and the record player. And you see they have a hole here, and the wire has been tucked in a slot. These wires go right into the receiver. They're not on a plug. So obviously, if you're going to take the receiver out, you got to do something about that wire. These are some poor photographs. There we are. So here I'm trying to get a picture of this. It's the back of the antenna. I've reached around and blindly pulled one wire out, and then realized, well, I don't really know where. Oh, okay, they come out. Where did it come out of? And it's very hard to see in behind here, just because of the way things are. So I took this photo so I could see where to put the wire back. Also catch the wires. Now these wires are probably colored distinctly back when this thing was made, but at this point, not so much. It's another shot. You can see that this wire that came through the hole is one that goes down there, and the other two wires come from here. For some reason they're keeping them separate. Maybe we'll find out as I work away on this radio why they don't have all three of them coming out of here. Maybe the hole wasn't big enough for three of them there. The black wire, the one that's under the screw, you can see it come down, and it heads over here, where it then follows all around the cabinet as a built-in long wire antenna. Not very long, short wire antenna for shortwave. Okay, now it's time to try to get this light out of here. So by taking photographs, I could see that this has got a very common way of fitting this on. It's quite a struggle to get it off. I eventually did. Then the wire is hidden in a slot here, and the slot was covered by this metal piece. Let me go back and see if we can see it. This metal piece here. That's an awful lot of protection. When the slot reaches the bottom, there's this cover. That's like a brassy metal cover. No, maybe not brass. You can never see it in the dark during normal use. Of course, it's got a light right above it, doesn't it? Here I am. I've managed to pull the wire out of the slot, and I can shove the light down through the hole. There's the cover from the hole. I had no idea any of this was going to be a factor.
So this is the light that came out of the record player area, and I'm just going to take it out because I'm worried I'm going to break it. Just got its two own lights here. Well, so my object tonight is to simply examine this thing, and it won't take very long now, to look at it and kind of come up with a game plan for how I would repair it when I go to do it, which may very well be tomorrow night, as opposed to tonight. So there's something glaringly concerning about this radio, and you're probably seeing it already too, and the owner of it also saw it and asked me about it. So yeah, look what's come out of this transformer. You know, at a glance, everything else looks great. There's really not much else to look at but that. Why don't we get the close-up camera going on that? So there's a detail I can see with my eyes, but probably didn't show up in the camera. Hold on, just let me get reset. What is that? What? Oh my gosh, the camera's down here. Okay, I've been standing on the camera. Grab the camera I'm not using. Here we go. So I was mentioning there was a detail probably not visible in the other camera, and that is that this stuff hasn't exactly leaked out the bottom. It looks like it's leaked out from between the laminations in the right out of the laminations. Now this radio, when it's in its normal position, it's actually tipped right up like this, right up. So not surprising that it's come out here and run down there. It's very gooey. It's not hard. Well, that's definitely a bad sign. I mean, there's no two ways about it. But I believe the owner of this told me he plugged it in and it hummed. That's a good sign. So it is possible to get replacements for these, or scavenge one, but scavenging stuff from other radios is not exactly the best way to go, because you go from two things to one thing. Someday it'd be none thing. And I think the whole idea is we're trying to stop the none thing from coming. Well, we'll take a little glance here. You can see the tuning capacitor has this outer plate bent out just a little bit. Just one segment's been bent out, which no doubt was done in the factory on purpose as part of the tuning of the radio. It looks like it has two output tubes. Oh, a lot of tubes. This thing's got a lot of tubes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 tubes. Well, that could make for a very good radio. So this is probably an RF tube right in the front end, probably before pretty much anything. Maybe not. No, I think maybe this is the mixer tube. What is it? That's all dust covered. Well, that's something I can do tonight. Look at that. Look at the amount of dust built up on this. Wow. Yeah, the view is entirely different from here. It looks fantastic from here. Looks like an old heater from here. Yeah, we want to get all this dust out of here. Then I can see what the tubes are, but there is a tube. It did go by in the slides, didn't it? I do have a tube. There's a tube chart in the back of the console cabinet, which I took a photograph of. Okay, now the fun part. We're going to look underneath and see, has anybody worked on this? Anybody else taken it out of there? No. So this is entirely original. So from a distance, the power cord had been handled in an odd way. So this may be the original wire here, maybe not. Oops, light in front of the camera. And they'd use those twist-on connectors that you use in your house, in your boxes and stuff in your house, to twist a length of wire, a long length, and then right towards the end was another piece twisted on which had the plug on it. Really not a good arrangement at all. So, but I think it's original because it's inside this extra cover here. I don't know why they would bother with that, but they did. I think one of the things I'm going to do right now is just kind of get that right out of there. I won't cut these at the terminals because if I leave the wires there, I'll know what I'm doing. Hopefully, I know what I'm doing. Just get rid of this. This is not going to be of any use. There we are. Fixed it. We're done. Now, I'll get the closer up camera going in a moment. Let's get the overview here. So I can see this capacitor, the end is popped out of it. So the capacitors are waxed up, and I think maybe it's just wax in the ends, and it often pops out. This one looks greasy and gooey. There's many of them in here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. That's a lot. Of course, it's got a lot of tubes, so it's got to have more parts. More tubes, more parts. This one's pretty big. So this radio has a transformer in it, so we shouldn't have to worry about hot chassis or anything like that. This is the plug that goes to the speaker, and not a lot of flexibility in that. Not a lot of flexibility in any of this. This is the plug that goes to power the record player. These are 3 antenna wires that go to a very cool antenna we'll look at in a moment. I think this is a capacitor here, and it certainly doesn't look like anything else. Is that possibly a replacement? It's possible. Okay, so it has this is a single band radio. Why the big switch here? I thought this was a single band radio. Well, must be mistaken. So this would be the band switch. There's the volume with the on-off. What's this switch? Probably a tone switch. Pretty certain. Loaded with capacitors. And of course, the tuning. Tuning is a little stiff, but okay. Some adjustments here for doing alignment. Adjustment done from the top. The IF cans looks like they must be done from the top also. We'll check that in a sec. So, Janet, let's see. Interesting question is, do I dare apply power to this thing right now? Find out what happens. I think the owner told me it hums, but then I can't keep it all straight. So, we could. I have to bring the speaker in. Great big speaker. Must use the right speaker for a radio like this. So I have to get that out of the cabinet, bring it in. Do something temporary about the power situation here. I think that might be a good idea. It's going to give me some notion of so what I'm doing is I'm wiggling this big filter capacitor. So you wouldn't expect that to be loose like that. There's a good chance this is a replacement. To me, it looks, well, it's got the same amount of dust on it. No, it's only got 20, it's got 35 years. These ones have got 65 years. No, I can't tell. Just kidding. But I'll bet you this could be a replacement. Maybe something has been done. So these are held in sometimes with nuts and like a screw, and nut. Other times they're kind of soldered. Other times they're just kind of press fit. Okay, so I think I can see what it is. This has got the tangs come through the slots, and then you grab a big wrench, twist them to lock it down. So that could easily be loose right from day one. But could be a replacement too. Generally, the factories have so much quality control going on in them that something like that would be a problem. That loose thing, they would find that and they'd go back and talk to whoever did it. Get that sorted out. Yeah, I think I'm going to try powering this up. So we're going to... Wait, we're going to look at the top? No. So it isn't capacitors. So you have to align these two transformers from underneath here. Oh yeah, sure, just didn't look close enough. Okay, I'm going to go and get that great big speaker. Okay, that proved to be a little bit challenging too. 3 screws, how tough can it be? So, we're going to take a look at the speaker, and then we'll take a look at that antenna too before I do any more. Again, there shouldn't be too much to see. There's quite a water stain in here. It looks like a water stain. But the cone doesn't look warped or anything. We have a huge crack in it right here. I shouldn't say huge either. Yeah, it's definitely cracked there. So if you leave a crack, looking very carefully now for any others, if you leave this kind of thing in that big speaker like this, it's going to blow air through that crack, and potentially you can hear a buzzy sound. Especially very, very low notes suddenly include, it sounds like breath almost, like someone playing a low note on an instrument and there's breath coming through. So the thing about this speaker, the thing about all speakers that are back from the 40s or so, they have a great big coil in them here. That's why it's so important to have this speaker plugged into the radio the way it's intended to be. There's the plug. Very stiff wires again. This plays an integral role in the filter, in the power supply filter. So you need it. You absolutely need it. In fact, the radio can't work without it because it can't get electricity from the power supply into the rest of the radio without going through that coil. So, other than a few spiders living in there, I think this is probably just fine. Generally speaking, I find very few of these very old speakers. This isn't very old. I guess it's all relative, isn't it? Yes, very old speakers to be very reliable. Very few I've come across that are not so good. Now, look at this antenna. So one of the difficulties with an AM radio is if you make a good antenna for it, a small good antenna as opposed to a long wire in your backyard, if you want to make something that you can have inside your house, or make something, I'm thinking about back in the 1940s, or make something that will fit inside the cabinet. You're bound to make, if you make a good antenna, you're bound to make a directional antenna. So if it's directional, usually, and this one would certainly be the case, usually they're not so directional in the way you want to pick up a station, but they're directional in the sense that you can get rid of a station. There's a null, there's a dead spot. And I believe it's just right off this way. So in the modern case, if you have some kind of noise, and who doesn't have noise in their house, it's possible to steer this antenna so the noise is almost gone if it's a single source of noise. And that can be really beneficial because you're not so much boosting the station you're listening to, you're getting rid of noise. Not necessarily possible. It could be noises coming from all directions in our modern houses, but so this is the can't quite read the first. This is the this is the RCA Victor magnetic loop antenna, highly efficient, designed for finer reception. RCA. Oh, you can see that on camera better than I can see it with my eyes. That's interesting. It's very hard to see. straight on. It's there. That's kind of what I see right there. Yeah. So one of the problems with selling a big radio like this is when you start telling the buyers that you've got to put an antenna outside, they start looking for another radio because they heard something about radios that don't need outdoor antennas anymore. Voila, because they have a not just a loop, they have a magic loop. Just about every radio manufacturer was coming up with something like this. I believe they were trying to patent it. That's why they're naming it. They're trying to beat the other guy. So in the cabinet, well, no, it wasn't a video, was it? On the pictures, you may not have been able to tell, but these are actually hinges, and you swing this. Now, it only has to go through 90 degrees to cover everything possible. It may not sound like that's how you think, well, don't you have to turn it all the way around? No, it's because it's symmetrical in all directions. The only real sweep is to do that. And that's exactly how it's arranged in the corner there, to sweep. So the problem with the directional antenna, and all of our little radios have them in it, they have the loop antennas. You put the radio down on the table where you'd like the radio to be, and the antenna may be nulling out the station you're interested in. So that's a problem. Well, a little portable, you just move it around a bit, doesn't really matter. But these great big radios, consoles, they're going in one place in somebody's house. They know where it's going when they buy it. They bring it home, they put it there. If the antenna was fixed in place, there'd be some splaining to do, just in case it can't pick up the station. In fact, back then it would be stations, it'd be more than one. So the main idea was, you put the console where you want it, you tune in your favorite station, maybe KDA or something like that, or WLS or whatever it might be, and then you move the antenna once. And you go, wow, that's a best spot right there. Whether it's a nulling or aimed at the station, whatever it is, there you go, and you just leave it. And then you turn to your wife and say, see, I told you if we bought the extra big model with the fancy antenna, the magnetic loop antenna, I wouldn't have to put a wire outside in the backyard that you don't like so much. I think that's the whole thing about this. That's the whole selling point. You didn't need to put a wire in the backyard. Okay, I really talked up a storm on that, but I get a kick out of these. So there's an adjustment for tuning the antenna. That's the terminals where these wires plug in. These antenna wires. And you must have this antenna hooked up to this radio. It's designed for it. So, okay, I'm going to stop for a minute and get that guy ready to be plugged in safely. Okay, I think we're all set now to turn this guy on and see what happens. Put this cord on it, soldered in. That should be good to go. Now I do have a way of turning on power to something like this. I use what's called a dim bulb system. That's these two light bulbs up here. I think I'll leave them both in. I also have this device here, but this is just dialed up for 120 volts. I'm not utilizing it to control the voltage here. So the power that gets to this radio at first is going to come through these light bulbs. That way, if there's something really seriously wrong here, we will know, because those bulbs will be on bright. Now they'll probably come on to some degree as it is. When I first turn the set on, and they make them on a little bright, but not to worry, unless it's fully bright. So switch is off here for checking. Okay, that's good. Turn the switch on. Maybe these lights will come on. Here we go. Just check. Good, here we go. It barely came on. They may come back on a little bit as this warms up. Band switch, the band switch. I don't know what band it's switched to right now. Probably the AM band. I don't hear a thing. So we're running it at 109 volts. That should be plenty. It should be operating. Stone silent. Okay, let's just cut the power. Double check that I've got this seated all the way. Maybe I don't. Okay, we'll try again, but I don't think I made any difference there. Switch is on. Okay, I can see one of the tubes lighting up here. So some of these tubes are glass, the rest are metal. But inside the metal is a glass tube, or glass anyway. Well, again, I just don't hear a thing coming out of this. That's full volume. Okay, maybe this. What was this? This was tone. There's no clicking, no nothing. My ear near the speaker. Absolutely nothing coming out of that speaker. So all suggestions are here at this point that there's no high voltage in the radio and that plug is really not seated properly. That's what that would all suggest. Okay, so I'm going to take a bigger run at that plug. Okay, let's give it another try. I think I may very well have had this on phono. Okay, power on again. Okay, I can see a tube warming up. 3 tone settings: treble, normal, and bass. Put it in normal. Oops, volume is up a bit. So just about all these radios have a bit of a hum in them. So when I stuck my ear over there and didn't hear anything, that's really very, very suspicious. Whoops. And one tube here doesn't appear to be lighting. Okay, here we go. No difference. No sound whatsoever. So let's turn the lights out and take a better look. Very much like one of the 2 output tubes is not operating. Let's take them out. This is the one that appears to not be working. There's no heat in it at all. Oh my gosh. Not quite what I expected there. That's a rectifier tube. This is the almost a little different than what I thought. Tube diagram. Let me study the tube diagram and to make sure I've got it correct here. Okay, got it sorted out. So these 2 are output tubes to drive the speaker. 2 6K6s, and in the socket here is a 5Y3. That's this. And sure enough, it says, I don't know if you can read it, 5Y3 on it. So we're going to put it in the tube tester here. We're going to give it a shot. I bet you it's dead. Okay, we'll set up this tube tester for a 5Y3. There we go, 5Y3, 5 volts for the heater. HR for the heater connections. The settings are 06000. Zero on the bias, 22 for English if we care to use it. Okay. Now this is liable to not even heat up. So these tubes run fairly hot, and so that you should see the heaters going right away. It's just nothing there. So I don't think we even need to go further, but I will. Plate number 1. Shorts. No shorts. A short light would have come on if there was a short. Rectifier. It's a dead dog. She's dead. She's gone. She's done her part and left. Okay. Let me get myself a replacement here. This is my box of rectifier tubes that I tested. At least I know they work. 5Y4. 5Y3. Okay. It's got more pins. Y3. 5Y3. Pin break off. No, just needs 2 pins for heaters and then 2 pins for the 2 plates. Just needs 4 pins. You know what? I'll tell you something. Whenever you're using your equipment, it's really a good idea to turn it on. Okay. Second chance at it, tube. I still think you're dead. No sign of heating in there. Okay. Bit of a flash there. Okay. Rectifier. She's still dead. Still dead. It's interesting that I did that test expecting it to test dead, so when it tested dead I was happy. But I didn't actually do the test. So this one's heating up. Okay. Much bigger flashes over here. Flash is fine. Rectifier button. And there we are. Now what's it supposed to do? 5Y3. Just come up above this diode OK mark, which it did. Look again. It's up above that mark. Okay, and now there's a second half to this tube. We need to test both halves, so we change the 6 to a 4. Literally connecting to the plate. You see it says plate there? Plate, screen, cathode, suppressor, grid, filament. I don't think I've ever mentioned that. All the times I've used this tester on videos. Okay, check for shorts just in case. You don't want to test a shorted tube. Good. Okay, so we're going to put this guy in the radio. Pretty sure something will happen at that point. Okay, the power's off. This tube's warm already to touch. Rectifier tubes get very hot. Rectifier tubes and output tubes. Okay, one more try. turn it on. Okay, so dim lights are much brighter this time. Much further ahead now. Going down. Expecting a loud hum to come out of the speaker. That's what I'm anticipating. Okay, 59 volts. Not enough to make the set operate. Maybe give it a little bit more time. It needs pretty much 90 volts for it to start operating something. Okay, here comes a hum. Oops, that was accidental. .62, it's drawing a fair bit of power. More than it should. 9 watts here. Now, I don't know if this is accurate when the voltage is so low. 28 watts. It's drawing a lot of power. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn down the supply. Way down. So this is about 60. Now I'm going to flip a switch here, and the 60 is going to go right to the radio, and these lights will be out of the circuit. Should sound kind of the same. Flip this so we can read watts. I don't use this very much, so we're on the 175 watt scale. And where is that? There it is. So we're at 50 watts here now. 50 watts, and this thing is saying 23 watts, but the voltage is so low, this may not be operating properly. Now there's usually a rating. Let me turn it down just a little bit. There's usually a rating that's written in the radio somewhere. So I'm going to check for that. Just took me a second. I've got it on my phone there. I might be able to read that. Yeah, 115 watts is what it should be drawing when it's running. Okay, that's a little more reassuring. 115 watts. So on this meter, 115 watts is right up where my finger is now. Okay, we're going to switch back to voltage. Okay, so I'm just getting pretty nervous here because we saw that this thing's been overheated. Don't be so nervous. There's no heat in it. Let's keep going. This is liable to get loud. Wattage is not changing much. Going down, in fact. Okay, just under 100 volt. Okay, that's the end of the test. That's all we need to do. So what that indicates to me is that this capacitor is not doing its job. Not any heat at all in this. So if this guy were on his way to, if this thing had a short in it, and that's why it overheated and melted out, I think it would be apparent already. I don't think that's the situation. If it had a short in it, it probably wouldn't produce the right voltage, and there's a good chance the radio wouldn't work properly anyway. So I think this is probably okay. It's just had a rough ride at some point. This guy's got to be changed, bypassed with new capacitor. Oh my gosh. That's hot. That's hot. Wow, yeah, let's say it again. That is hot. I've never felt a capacitor hot like that. Well, there you go. Well, that was interesting in the end. Okay, so obviously just a basic change out of a dozen capacitors, get rid of this thing, or at least bypass it underneath with some new capacitors. Chances are very good this is okay. And the rectifier was dead for, I guess its time had come. So thanks a lot for watching, and we'll get busy on this maybe tomorrow night. I'll work on it a bit. See ya.